And I'm going to introduce our next two speakers who are both from Health Canada, and they are doing a tag team presentation on digital food environments and nutrition policies, challenges and opportunities. And the presenters are Dr. Alfred Aziz, who is the Director General of the Office of Nutrition Policy and Promotion with Health Canada, and Maya Villeneuve, who is the Acting Director of the Bureau of Nutritional Sciences. So I'll turn it over to Alfred and Maya.
Okay, thank you, Kim, and thank you, Melissa. It's great to be here and to see all you safe and healthy. I was kind of thinking that tomorrow we would be in Edmonton for the Canadian Nutrition Society meeting. Unfortunately, the circumstances are preventing everyone to be traveling, and many of these conferences that we all look forward to every year are basically kind of canceled or done virtually, but nothing really beats kind of being able to be in the physical presence of the colleagues and collaborators and be able to have, but that's better than nothing, I guess. And I'm very excited to be here. I was joking earlier that this is the first time I take a conference call like this, and I kind of dressed up for it in a certain way. So I'm very happy, and I want to introduce my colleague Maya Villeneuve, who is the Acting Director of the Bureau of Nutritional Sciences in the Food Directorate at Health Canada. So before I start, I just kind of like want to also make a quick comment on the idea of influencer, and because I'm not really sure that I will kind of get to it through my presentation, is that even the topic of influencer is evolving from traditional influencers to organic influencers. And the number of people who are being followed on social media like Instagram and whatnot seems to kind of have reached a certain peak in terms of what does it actually influence, because there's more, the influence is more around engagement. So real people, real influence, peer influence is an organic influence is where we're kind of heading in terms of social media influencers. And we can certainly discuss that during the breakout session. But like for today's presentation, really our objective is to explore the challenges and opportunities related to the impact of food environment. Trying to figure out how to move my slide here. Okay, perfect. Sorry. To explore the challenges and opportunities related to the impact of the digital food environments on nutrition policies. We'll really focus on digital activities that are relevant to Health Canada's work, including information landscape, marketing, health promotion interventions, as well as regulations. So digitization has fundamentally changed every aspect of our life. We are totally bombarded every day with real-time news. We even do our travel plans online, etc. But really of particular interest to this meeting today is how digitization has changed our relationship with food and our understanding of it. We use screens in our pockets for the research, selection, and purchase of everything, from supermarket groceries to fully cooked meals that are delivered straight to our doors, and Melissa touched upon that earlier. We operate in a digital food ecosystem that includes a broad range of activities. These include things like how we inform ourselves about healthy eating habits or the nutritional value of food products. As I've mentioned earlier, it includes different kinds of online shopping experiences, such as grocery shopping, food delivery apps, etc. It also entails the messages we receive that influence our food choices, such as public health campaigns or targeted, more data-based marketing. In this new, constantly evolving context, convenience is really driving purchasing behavior and food choices like never before. However, moving from home-cooked meals to instant meal has consequences on nutrition and health, since those options are often highly processed food. What's more, those choices are even harder to avoid because of highly personalized, data-driven marketing. Big data and marketing are fueling the internet, and there is an exponential growth of data on individual consumers and their behaviors. Increasingly, sophisticated digital analysis and marketing apparatus are available. Automated systems, including profiling, algorithmic decision-making, predictive analytics, etc., as well as data collection and marketing now are highly intertwined and interconnected. This tailoring of marketing messages to each, sorry, made a mistake here. Oops, what's happening? Sorry. The tailoring of these marketing messages to each individual is making it even harder to make healthy choices. Children in particular are at risk of being exposed to highly persuasive and intensely marketing messages related to highly processed food. However, there are challenges that oh God, I'm skipping slides here, I apologize. So there are definitely challenges, but we are also looking at opportunities. When we look at challenges and other dimensions that add complexity to this environment is that digital spaces are also less regulated and less understood than the traditional food environments. Taken together, these factors lead some experts to be concerned that the digital food environment may lead to an acceleration of many of the health challenges that we face, including child and adolescent overweight and obesity, adult obesity, and chronic disease. On the other hand, digital interventions that aim to improve nutrition outcomes hold promise. Another positive impact or aspect of this increase in connectivity is that digital platforms provide opportunities for researchers to collaborate and bring collective knowledge together to inform policy. And I think this is why we are all here today. This could be as simple as social media allowing researchers to connect about their research to more formal structures delivered via online platforms such as observatories, which produce, systemize, and provide knowledge about areas that are of interest to and used to public administrators. So this is the conceptual framework that our colleague here present with us, Sabrina Granham, has basically very well illustrated. Melissa has talked about it, so I'm not gonna go back to it, but this is really to illustrate how how to understand digital food environment and what it encompasses as the digital components that may be part of food environments and influence health and nutrition. So, as I mentioned earlier, digitization has really changed how people are exposed to, use, and engage with information, and social media has contributed to this trend in an important way. As opposed to traditional media, social media is all about the dynamic nature of the content. Its very purpose for users to consume, create, and share content in their format of their choice, whether it is pictures or videos. People also consume the available information differently. They search for it, and they visit sources of information in an active and deliberate way, but also as a result of other activities online or on social media. For example, content shared by friends or families. This shift has been really positive in that it has given smaller, more marginalized groups the opportunity to have their voices heard. The flip side is that more traditional information sources where content is more scrutinized for rigor and credibility before being made publicly available are losing influence in favor of these alternative sources. It's definitely a much more crowded landscape than it used to be in the past. In fact, when we think about user-generated content, it is significantly more popular, even if it is less scientifically sound and credible. There is a lot, as Melissa mentioned, misinformation and disinformation around what a healthy diet is, and generally about food. And there is really a nuance between the two terms, where misinformation refers to inaccuracies that stem from error, such as misunderstanding or misinterpretation. Disinformation is deliberate falsehood promulgated by design to deceive or confuse consumers. Most consumers do not have the competence and skills necessary to critically assess the food and nutrition information that they are exposed to distinguish between reliable information versus mis or disinformation. In a nutshell, we know that social media and various communication channels may increase awareness and drive the public to information, but there's a lot we don't know. What are effective education strategies for public health broadly and by population segments? Another question is, how do you actively or effectively drive consumers to credible information? Are there alternative methods? How do we monitor consumers' uptake of the information and how it affects behavior change? While we know we have to increase and improve our presence of on these platforms if they want to remain relevant and effective, there is also an opportunity to increase the health, food, and nutrition literacy of Canadians to critically assess the nutrition information that they are exposed to through digital technology. By increasing overall digital literacy, Canadians can also better understand how their lives are impacted by this technology while interacting with health and food and nutrition information. I'll give you an example. We at Health Canada respond to a variety of users' needs by supporting meaningful user interaction while allowing access in a cohesive and central location through digital technology with the revised Canada's Food Guide. We are developing and promoting credible and user-friendly content and tools through a suite of resources. For example, the Food Guide offers content for healthy eating anywhere and how to assess food marketing to help consumers critically assess the nutrition information to which they are exposed. The use of digital activities and arenas or settings provide platforms for health promotion efforts, including nutrition. The Food Guide, as I mentioned, is a suite of resources, provides the platform for consumers to learn through educational videos and recipes, and for professionals to support their work with clients. We're building an application program interface, or what we call an API, to allow third-party apps to pull data from the Canada Food Guide website for positive messaging, push notification, integration into tracking app, etc. We are also conducting digital research, such as social listening, to analyze the activity and conversations from Canadians and stakeholders and media related to Canada's Food Guide in order to get insight that will help us better understand and respond to gaps and meet the needs of Canadians. Improving health and food and nutrition literacy is an important part of the solution, given it is at the intersection between the individual and the broader food environment. We know that behaviors and skills cannot be separated from their environmental and social context, so it is imperative that we consider all aspects, and case in point are children. What can we say about children? I look at myself and I look at the new generation and I see a really broad difference between how I grew up and how today's children are growing up, which is in a really multi-screen, multi-device, intelligent, commercial, digital environment, and dynamic changes are still underway. There is a proliferation of mobile phones and other digital devices that today's kids have access to that people of my generation did not. There are online and offline experiences that are increasingly merged, and we live really in a very ubiquitous media culture where there is 24/7 engagement. Marketing has really a pervasive presence on social media and other digital platforms. Children have really been and continue to be a highly lucrative target for digital marketers. Because they are early adopters and avid users of digital media, they also have a discretionary spending power, and they are important influencers in family purchasing decisions. Digital marketing really engages children in emotional, entertaining experiences and encourages them to share these experiences with their friends. And that's why I was talking earlier about organic influencers, because when peers kind of get into that platform, it's really, this is how the influence gets spread among people, especially among children. It's also said that digital marketing amplifies advertising in traditional media, achieving greater ad retention or attention and recall, greater brand awareness and more positive brand attitudes, greater intent to purchase, and higher product sales. Canadian children, for example, see too much advertising for foods that contribute to excess consumption of nutrients of concern. In this case, we're referring to really sodium, saturated fat, and free sugars. And they are really particularly vulnerable to the impact of advertising. There is also convincing evidence that food marketing in traditional media has detrimental effects on children eating and eating-related behaviors. Early studies suggest that marketing in digital media has similar effects, as you will hear from our great researcher, Monique, later this morning. So what kind of considerations we do have for marketing to children policies? So the vast size, sophistication, and rapidly evolving nature of digital marketing will require us as policymakers to develop innovative and flexible approaches for documenting and assessing the variety of ways in which food and beverages marketers engage with young people. Taken as a whole, this new system of data-driven digital marketing is such a fundamental departure from traditional forms of advertising and promotion that it requires a rethinking really of the basic concepts that have dominated both the research and policy for many years. For example, what is marketing messages? Marketing woven seamlessly into young people's experience, content, social interactions, and services. Not just the viewing content, but really inhabiting media environments where entertainment, communication, and marketing are combined. Looking at exposure, in the digital context, exposure must be considered more dynamically to capture the full array of interactions between young people and advertising. And also look at products. Marketer strategies are increasingly focused on brand promotion and loyalty rather than only specific products. As policymaker, we will also need to stay abreast of technological development, changing industry practices, and shifting media behaviors of children and teens. We will also need to work collaboratively and across disciplines, combining expertise from various fields to craft practical solutions. An example of this is really the need to pay close attention to privacy issues because of the close connection between digital marketing and data practices. Monitoring advertising to children is an important part of our role in Health Canada in developing evidence-based nutrition policy and in studying its impact. Through monitoring, new evidence will be generated on the extent and nature of advertising to children in Canada.
Alfred, yeah. Can you go back to the previous slide?
Oh, sorry. Sometimes I click and it's kind of like misses too. Sorry, thanks. So mentioning that, so through monitoring, new evidence will be generated to read it on the extent and nature of advertising in Canada, which will facilitate the evaluation and the informing policy decisions in the future. Both exposure to and power of advertising are critical elements policy making, including monitoring. In other words, our approach really to monitoring will consider a range of settings and multiple techniques, including digital techniques and digital settings. While studies are emerging on how to measure exposure to marketing in digital settings, there are no real established research method, policy evaluations, or protocol for systematic monitoring of digital food marketing. But some promising models and new thinking include the WHO Europe's CLIck approach, which is really an acronym based on set of activities, including assessing and mapping the digital ecosystem, marketing ecosystem, collecting data on current campaigns and their viewers, conducting research on users and their parents through focus group and technological tools, and employing screen capture software and panels of children to identify and assess techniques in use to target young people. There are also some academic studies in the field of public health, communications, and computer science that offer promising models. Those new tools could be useful in the future research. Industry measurement applications that could be incorporated into a monitoring system are also promising. What is clear is that it will take a combination of methods and strategies to adequately monitor digital food marketing and young people's engagement with it. As I mentioned earlier in my presentation, digital platforms also provide an opportunity to enhance collaboration and coordination of research. Similarly, collaborative platforms could provide an opportunity for stakeholders and experts to come together. So let's talk a bit about the digital health promotion interventions, because they have a real and enormous potential as they can improve effectiveness, efficiency, accessibility, and personalization of interventions. In fact, technology is increasingly being used to promote healthy behaviors such as healthy eating and physical activity are currently in place. So while some studies have looked at use of technologies such as smartphone apps, behavior tracking, etc., to promote influence and nutritional health, effectiveness of these kind of technologies are not yet established. To date, the potential of digital health interventions hasn't likely been really realized to the fullest, partly because of difficulties in generating and accumulating a knowledge base for guiding decisions about digital health interventions. These difficulties include the rapid change of the wider technology landscape, which require these technologies to constantly evolve and be updated just to remain useful, let alone improve. However, the public health professionals and policymakers, we all have to make decisions on digital health interventions now. And researchers could support such decision-making by creating an actionable knowledge base to identify the most effective, cost-effective, safe, and scalable interventions and their components for improving individual and population health. These decisions are really particularly important in a resource-constrained context like the ones that we're currently living in. Children and youth are a priority audience, and through segmentation research, gamification was identified as gamification per se was identified as a key tactic for this audience. Opportunity to use technology for segmented population for gamification include lack of quality of educational games for children and youth in the areas of nutrition and public health, augmented reality, or what we call AR. Serious games could provide an engaging and immersive learning experience to nurture students' desire to learn about nutrition and result in long-lasting healthy eating knowledge and behaviors, whether it's via supporting educator with the right tools in the classroom or actually supporting parents at home. So at Health Canada, we're considering all of these kind of interventions as part of our New Canada's Food Guide and how we can really target children in terms of their ability to learn about healthy eating and the food guide. There is also an opportunity to identify interventions to support Canadians toward healthy eating as a way to achieve and maintain good health and prevent chronic disease. These could address food literacy, mostly like food skills, support healthier food purchasing while shopping online, food access, as well as equity. These interventions, where appropriate, would also support the food system that a sustainable food system that considers our environmental contribution to climate change. So now I will kind of hand it over to Maya because she's gonna be talking about the regulatory aspect. So this is kind of distinguishes our mandate in the Office of Nutrition Policy and Promotion and the Food Directorate. So Maya, I'll hand it over to you. Thank you for your attention. I'm happy to take questions after Maya finishes.
Merci, Alfred. And Alfred, I'll rely on you to be my slide changer. So we're going to be looking right now at the regulatory perspective, more specifically on nutrition labeling and claims. So as we see, internet sales and e-commerce is a growing platform for the sale of food. So there's many examples. Some have been mentioned this morning, like ordering directly from restaurant delivery service, ordering from specific delivery service like Uber Eats, Skip the Dishes, ordering from groceries online, from the traditional online grocery stores like Loblaws and Metro, and also a little bit less traditional actors like Amazon. And there's also these subscribing to food box and meal kits like HelloFresh and Good Food. So now more than ever, this new trend is likely accelerating in Canada as more and more Canadians are trying to avoid going to retail because of COVID-19. They're also looking at supporting local businesses, and because a lot of restaurants are closed, they're still trying to enjoy some of their favorite restaurant food, but through online delivery services. So what's going to be very interesting is to see the long-lasting impact of these purchasing behavior as the current pandemic, lasts for a certain period of time. Is it going to allow consumers to develop new habits? And I think there's a presentation later today by Dr. Charlebois that's going to be looking at that more specifically. Also, what's important to mention is the current mandatory nutrition labeling information, like the nutrition facts table and the list of ingredients, is not always provided on digital environments. Some have a list of ingredients and the front of the pack in terms of pictures. Some do have the nutrition labeling information, and other websites also have basically just a picture of the front of the package with a small description and no list of ingredients or no nutrition facts table. Meanwhile, they're actually looking for more information that are not necessarily health and safety related. So for example, they're looking at information on ingredients, what are the natural or artificial flavors that are used, specific certification like organic, special dietary needs like vegan, keto, and then they're also looking at food allergens that are not necessarily the priority allergens that are usually found on food label. So next slide. Thank you. So this slide, it highlights how the different jurisdictions are currently regulating nutrition labeling and claims in the digital environment. So some of you may be familiar with the Codex Alimentarius. It is an international organization. It's under the World Health Organization and the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. It is a standard-setting body, so they multiple countries participate in the Codex meetings, and they develop international standards. And a lot of the domestic regulations inspire themselves from those international standards. So there is a standard called the Codex General Codex General Standard for the labeling of prepackaged foods that specifies that it applies to the labeling of all prepackaged foods. So it's suggesting that the information provided through technology is also within the scope of this standard. However, there is no specific paragraph that mention that labeling of foods sold through internet sales, e-commerce, it basically is included in there. And also there is a lack of international guidance when it comes to selling food online. So this is why, because there's a lack of clarity right now and not much information in terms of the existing Codex standards in that regard, there is currently new work that is under development for the use of technology in food labeling and internet sales, e-commerce, that is proposed at the Codex Committee on Food Labeling, and that work is underway. Now, that being said, the Codex activities have been impacted quite a bit with the current COVID crisis, so it remains to be seen how quickly that work will evolve. In Canada, the current policies and regulations, they don't fully capture the food sold through digital settings. Foods that are sold from Canadian online retailers, they have to comply with the Food and Drug Act and the Food and Drug regulations. And the claims, of course, on those Canadian websites are also subject to enforcement action. However, it's not mandatory for online retailers to disclose the labeling information or the list of ingredients. So often that information is missing, unfortunately. Some jurisdictions actually have started to put regulations in place for online food purchases. So, for example, the European Union requires all mandatory nutrition information to be, mandatory labeling information, I should specify, be available before the purchase of the food is concluded. The only exception is the date marking, so the best before dates. Switzerland also has a mandatory labeling requirement under their law on foodstuff. However, a lot of these international regulators don't necessarily have a standardized manner in which the information must be shown. So, for example, in some cases, there is a picture of the products and all sides of the products. That provides the mandatory information. In either case, there's a mix of pictures and text. In addition, there's some online sellers that disclose information on a voluntary basis and will show all sides of the products, but sometimes the images are a little bit, remains to be desired. They're not the clearest sometimes. So moving on to slide 14. There's definitely some challenges associated to, Alfred, slide 14. Thank you. So there's definitely some challenges associated to regulating nutrition labeling and claims in the digital environment. For example, ensuring that there is the information is compliant, truthful, not misleading, can pose certainly some enforcement challenges. It's maybe difficult to keep up with the different platforms that sell food to the Canadian consumers. Like I said, some online retailers are have been pretty stable over the years, but there's new groups that have appeared over the years and then disappear as well. There's not really a standardized presentation of that information for the consumers, which can be challenging to the consumers, but also we don't necessarily know how old the information is. So when's the last time that product information was updated, and does it still reflect the actual product? So there's several gaps that still exist. So what do we know about consumer interactions with food label information online? So do they buy the food they're used to buying every time, so that basically it's just a repeat of the same product that they're buying? Or are they looking for new products as well? What are the effective strategies to increase the use of credible nutrition information in digital food label? Is the information overwhelmingly emphasizing health attributes? Are consumers able to easily compare food products to make healthier food choices? So sometimes on these online retailers, you see different products maybe in one category, but you don't see the full labeled information, ingredients list, nutrition facts table. So it makes it a little bit more challenging for the consumer to easily compare. So moving on to the next slide. There are certainly some opportunities associated with regulating nutrition labelings and claim in the digital setting. Oh, Alfred, next slide, slide 15. Thank you. Basically, the traditional food package has some limited space to convey the information to consumers. So digital tools certainly have a potential to provide a lot more information to consumer. You know, some of this information is also what we would consider non-mandatory information, non-health and safety, but consumer interest. Like, for example, the fish that they just purchased, where, when was it caught? So that is the traceability aspect is something certainly that is interesting to consumer. Can also be interesting for government, especially if there's a recall aspect associated to that. That can certainly be also an interest for us. A digital tool that seems to have some uptake in the industry in the United States is something called Smart Label, and I don't know if you've ever come across that. It is something that gives instantaneous access to detailed information about some food and beverages. It's not just food and beverages, there are some consumer products like shampoo and other things like that as well. But you can use your app. So you basically scan the QR code on the package, and right away it takes you to a page where you have a lot of information about that food, and it includes in some cases some traceability aspects as well. So, and the consumer can use that approach, or they can also go to company websites or participants, and they are also taken to this Smart Label information. So those are interesting tools that are out there. Another opportunity is on the food supply monitoring side, as traditional surveillance tools sometimes struggle to keep pace with with new trends, a large number of new food products. So, you know, these digital tools provide us a way with easier and cheaper monitoring option that can certainly help us inform our policies and reporting needs. These tools are going to need to be a little bit more refined over the next few years. And for sure, if we want to make sure those tools are relevant and up to date, collaboration with industry and e-commerce might be a key to getting that information. On the opposite side, some groups may also use this information to analyze consumer behavior and quickly adapt their marketing strategy. So that's every positive has also a little bit of a negative aspect associated to it. So moving on to the next slide, some key messages. The key takeaways from our presentation today is that there's some important challenges and opportunity related for nutrition policy in the digital food environment. For example, the decentralization of information online and marketing in digital media are public health challenges, and some subpopulation, like Alfred mentioned earlier in his presentation, such as children, are especially more vulnerable. There's also some really good aspect related to big data. It certainly can help evaluate the impact on disease and obesity outcome in adults and children. It can help monitor the food supply. It can better understand consumer behavior. It also can identify interventions to support Canadians toward healthy eating. And also it can help better understand the context of food choices. In addition, online food labeling information challenges the current regulatory system, especially from a regulatory development and enforcement aspect. Finally, digital platforms could help harness Canada's knowledge base on healthy eating and leverage the expertise of different experts on the call today to coordinate and maximize efforts to support and evaluate policies and regulations. So thank you very much, and Alfred and I will be more than happy to take any questions.